Oh, and Fanny, do tie down the patio furniture. We're expecting a bit of a storm this afternoon, and every time I go chasing after a lawn chair, the neighbors think I'm stealing one of theirs. I'll take that in here. I'm expecting a call from the coast. You bastard! Why haven't you returned my calls? Oh, sweetie. Well, darling, I'm terribly sorry, but I thought you were... Well, what I mean is... Well, I needn't bore you with the dreary details. Me? Fine, I suppose. No, not yet. Well, these things take such time. But everyone knows the part was practically written for me. I mean, I am Scarlett O'Hara. Oh, really? Do tell, howbeit you came to hear that nonsense. The Hartford Courant. Well, no modern sophisticate reads the Hartford Courant, least of all we Hepburns. Well, after the vicious lies they printed about Tom and Mother, today's edition, you say? Well, I do appreciate you bringing that morsel of news to my attention, but as you know, I never read anything written about me unless it's true, which means I never read anything written about me. Listen, sweetheart, I hate to cut you off, but there's someone at the door. Yes, I will. Goodbye. For some indefinable reason, the press has never been fond of me. Not to say the feeling isn't mutual, mind you. I conclude Luella Parsons to be the cause. You see, at my very first Hollywood interview, Miss Luella, menopausal hag that she is, pushed her sagging face through a mob of reporters to ask me why I don't have children. Well, I thought the question entirely none of her damn business, but being a woman of kind and gentle disposition, I rose above her rather intrusive inquiry and answered, children? Oh, but Miss Luella, I do have children. Yes, 2 white, 3 colored. The interview came to an abrupt end after that. Oh, let's see what we have here. Oh, here it is. Oh, good Lord, where'd they find that picture of me? I look like Boris Karloff in a jumpsuit. Hepburn flees Hollywood, career in a tailspin by Luella Parsons. Should make for an interesting read. Katharine Hepburn returned home to Mummy and Daddy last month with her 14-carat tail tucked properly between her society legs. For despite 6 years of film stardom and 6 straight flops in a row, Katharine of Arrogance, as she is commonly known by those who survived 10 seconds in her presence, is anxiously awaiting to be offered the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Although one can't imagine why Clark Gable would spend years attempting to win the heart of a woman who evidently does not have one. Just ask Howard Hughes, whose marriage proposal was recently rejected by Our Lady of Perpetual Indulgence. And so, in short, Hepburn is out of Hollywood, out of work, out of luck, and thankfully out of sight. Well, I think she just about covered it. 6 straight flops in a row. That's an outright lie. There were 7. Unfortunately, Hollywood is not known for being a town of forgiveness, especially when it comes to filmmaking. Well, they don't mind if you have a flop now and then. They don't even care if you have a lot of them, which, regrettably, I've had. What most concerns them is the sequence in which the films are made. You see, a person can have a flop, hit, flop, flop, hit, flop, flop. I suppose one could even survive a flop, flop, hit, flop, flop. But no one can ever have what I had, which is a hit, flop, hit, flop, 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 flop. They either make money on you or they lose money because of you. And they don't give a rat's ass about reviews. Take Holiday or Bringing Up Baby. I had some of the best reviews of my career with those films. Didn't make a damn bit of difference. You see, critical acclaim does not necessarily translate into dollar figures. And so after a rather unfortunate string of bad luck, theater owners decided I deserved a nickname for my contribution. Box office poison. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? That storm is coming in sooner than we thought. You see, the funny thing about being successful, you think you'll never be unsuccessful again. When you're out there immersed in the magic and the lights are shining and the cameras are rolling and your bank account is growing, you think it will never end. But it does. And when it does, you fall harder than those who've never had a taste of what you've had. So you withdraw. You pray it's just a temporary lull. Maybe just a little downtime. Hello? Leland, where the hell have you been? Oh, never mind all that. Did you talk to Selznick? Unacceptable. Well, I've done one screen test in my life, and even that was one too many. Well, I don't care. Talk to him. Tell him something. Lie to him if you have to. Oh, for God's sake, I'll do it for nothing. Just get me the damn part. No, I will not reconsider doing Mother Carey's chickens for RKO. Because I work with people, Leland, not poultry. Well, who else is up for it? Betty Davis. There isn't a camera lens in Hollywood that can make that woman look 25 again. What's that you say? Margaret Sullivan. Do you mean to tell me you've been pushing for that wife of yours over me? Oh, my dear pathetic darling. Well, it's evident from your tone you have yet to fully appreciate my position on this matter, so let me clarify myself. If I don't play Scarlett O'Hara, you won't be playing my agent anymore. Don't believe it? Try me. Leland Hayward was briefly my lover before becoming my agent. Tragically, he excelled at neither. Now, I know you're probably thinking my behavior was contemptible. Well, you're damn right it was. Sometimes it has to be. But it's certainly not something I'm proud of. Well, would you look at that? Excuse me a moment. I'll take it from here, Fanny. You can go home. I suppose the first thing you should know about we Hepburns is that we are all creatures of habit. We rise with the sun, retire by moon, and most importantly, Father insisted that every day, no matter what Mother and I were doing, we had to be home to serve tea at 5. And when the last cup was poured, we did something families rarely seem to do these days. We talked about everything. Politics, religion, even sex. And no matter what was being discussed, we children were never sent out of the room. You see, my parents believed that if adults kept things from children, children would most certainly keep things from them. I suppose I'm like the little girl who never grew up, so to speak, because I never really left home. I've always come back here, almost every weekend of my life when I wasn't filming. And that's unusual. It's very, very unusual for someone who sort of made it in the big world to want to come home to her father's house. But this is my paradise. It always has been. Never a care or worry at Fenwick. Why, Tom and I used to... He really was quite extraordinary, Tom. I know lots of girls look up to their older brothers, but Tom truly was... Well, I remember one time in grade school when a boy called me scrawny or freaky or one of the many names I was called back then. Tom went right up to that boy and gave him a good hard sock in the nose. Wham! Closed fist. You see, Tom was my protector. And I was his girl. I was his favorite girl in the world. I was his favorite girl. When Father first bought this property 20-some-odd years ago, there were only 39 homes in Fenwick, 38 of which belonged to Republicans. True story. Why, in those days you could walk out your front door and it was like walking through the cafeteria at Aetna Life Insurance. All the men were in Bermuda shorts, wingtip shoes, no socks. And the women were starched and stuffy. Fortunately, we imported more liberals over the years to help tutor our tragically unprogressive neighbors on such matters as sensible beachfront decor, demonstrative childbearing, and why geraniums, although a perfectly charming flower, can be overdone. To be fair, our neighboring members of the GOP taught us a few things as well. Who knew that cornflakes and chicken, when baked 350 degrees for 40 minutes, could be so flavorsome? You see, I believe we are all born Democrats, and those of us lucky enough to make a little money in life turn Republican. The rest remain Democrats. And then you have the tragic cases like we Hepburns, able to make a decent living, and yet we remain hopelessly liberal. My parents being a prime example. You see, Father is a doctor, well, a urologist. He's one of the leading physicians in his field at Hartford Hospital. At least that's what he tells everybody. I suppose looking at hoo-haws all day does warrant some bragging rights. Now, Mother, she is the more important of the Hepburn women, not me. And I'll tell you a little story why. About 30 years ago, a recently married man brought his pregnant wife to see Father. She had extreme cramps, was in unbearable pain. After a thorough examination, Father diagnoses her with severe gonorrheal peritonitis. 2 days later, that woman and her unborn child are dead. Here's a little footnote to the night before the wedding. The groom-to-be is taken to a whorehouse by his bachelor cronies. He contracts gonorrhea, gives it to his wife, and conceives a child. One hell of a wedding present. The real kicker to all this is that poor woman died without ever knowing precisely what it was that was killing her, feeling heartbroken and guilty. When Father told Mother this story, she immediately marched herself down to the hotel guard and soon became president of the Women's Suffrage Association. But she was instrumental in those days, closing down the houses of prostitution and educating people on birth control and venereal disease. I suppose my parents' careers complement each other in a way. You see, while father is busy examining the male genitalia, there's mother desperately trying to slip a prophylactic on it. What? Actually, Dickie, I am rather busy at the moment. No, let me tell you what you are going to do. You're going to take that script of yours and burn it. Every page, every word, do you understand? Don't toy with me, Dickie. You want to play games? Well, you better damn well remember who you're up against. Now say goodbye, Dickie. No? Well, then I will. Goodbye. My brother, Dickie, has written a play entitled Sea Air. And apparently he's found a producer for it. Well, it's a rather engaging story. It's all about this self-centered movie actress who, after having been blackballed from Hollywood, moves into the family beach house in Connecticut to mull over a marriage proposal from her millionaire boyfriend. Of course, it's all fiction. Like hell it is. Hartford National Bank. May I speak to Barbara Donovan, please? Barbara. Katharine Hepburn calling. Well, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Listen. Oh, you saw that film, did you? Twice? Oh, my. That is very kind of you, darling. Very Christian. Listen. Do me a favor. I'm currently wiring an allowance in the amount of $125 per week into my brother Dick's account over there. Yes. Well, I would very much like to end that arrangement effective today. Of course. And you have yourself a lovely weekend. I know I will. Even if I am alone. But that's the trade-off, isn't it? That's the sacrifice one makes for getting somewhere in life. You see, Father was not exactly tickled when I chose a life in the arts over medicine. No, in his own words, becoming an actress is more despicable than becoming a prostitute. No. Because at least with a hooker, there's plenty of room for employment opportunity. According to Father, if I were going to be an actress, I had to be a great actress. So I accepted Father's terms. He gave me his blessings, and I gave him a movie star for a daughter. No, he was delighted by that. It's a pity I couldn't enjoy it myself, but I was too busy making myself into a fascinating creature. Remaining isolated, keeping my distance, you see. That's what one does. One detaches from things in life. From life itself, really. It's the only way to maintain your drive and protect your talent. At least that's how it was for me. That is, until I met Frances Robinson Duff. Now, who in the world is Frances Robinson Duff? Well, she was a famous Wagnerian soprano and was the only person in New York who taught actors how to speak. Because, as you may perhaps already know, most of us cannot. Duff was this towering, corpulent German woman, and when I say German, I mean Deutsch. I spent the first 6 months with her, an entire 6 months, trying to blow out a candle. For 55 minutes, week after week, there I'd be. Ha, he, ha, ho, hoo. And after every ha, he, ha, ho, hoo, the damn flame would still be there. But one day the miracle happened and the flame went out. Shortly after that, I was hired to stand by for a young actress named Hope Williams in Holiday by Philip Barry. It was a major success, and Hope became an instant star, charming theater audiences with her boyish looks and her silly expressions. She had this way of walking across a stage, strutting really, with her knees bent and her arms swinging. Oh, she had tremendous stage presence and audience appeal. They couldn't get enough of her. I would watch her night after night from the sidelines, listening to the thunderous laughter and applause. How desperately I waited for the opportunity to show the rest of the cast and the audience and the entire world there was nothing Hope Williams could do that I couldn't do better. Well, one day the miracle finally happened. Hope called in sick, into the understudy. I went on stage that night, and I copied everything Hope Williams did, from the way she walked, to the way she talked, to the way she laughed, to the way she uttered each and every word. And yet something was amiss. Where audiences used to applaud, I got nothing. Where Hope got roars of laughter, I got nothing. It was at that moment I realized just how good an actress Hope Williams was and how much I had yet to learn. Oh, I ran to Fräulein Duff's that night in a pouring rain, and oh, how I cried. Embarrassingly so. When I had calmed myself, Duff stared me down with those beady eyes of hers and said, "Tell me one thing, Katharina. Do you want to be an actress, or do you want to be a star?" But I didn't have to think about that for one damn second. I got right in her face, with my jaw forward and my teeth clenched, and I said, "I want to be a star." "Well," she said, "then you will need the voice of a star, a voice all your own, so even if people closed their eyes, they would still know it was you." And together, we created Katharine Hepburn. I must say, after that, I could get any part I wanted. Keeping that part, however, was an entirely different matter. Case in point, Death Takes a Holiday. We played Washington, Philadelphia, and right before we were to go to New York, that son of a bitch Schubert fires me. My reason for termination, according to the letter he sent my union, was insufferable bossiness and outrageous posturing. Can you imagine? Art and Mrs. Bartle, again fired. The producer felt I was too unattractive. Oh, that one hurt. Next came Animal Kingdom, again by Philip Barry. Again I was fired. But at least this time it was done properly, by telegram. "Dear Kate, stop. Your performance is excruciating. Stop. It is evident no woman of your vile and vicious disposition could ever play light comedy. Stop. Consider this telegram your formal notice of termination. Stop. Merry Christmas. Stop." Well, they all thought I was finished. All those bastards thought I'd go running back home, and did I? Not a chance. I landed back on my feet and I showed them all, as Queen Antiope in The Warrior's Husband. At the beginning of the play, I bound down a 40-step staircase 3 steps at a time with a fake deer carcass on my back. When I hit the stage floor, I yelled, "Someone bring me a bowl of water, will you? I'm in a terrific sweat." And oh, the audience went delirious with applause. I was a hit. My first Broadway hit. Please let there still be some water in the well. Hello. Oh, Luddy, darling. It's the ex-husband. Sweetheart, how are you? Moreover, where are you? I thought you were coming down this weekend. A hurricane? Oh, sweetie, it's only a tropical storm. Next weekend, yes, I'll be here. Don't you read Variety, darling? I have nowhere else to go. No, nothing yet. But I mean, really, who else is there to play Scarlett O'Hara but me? Listen, sweetie, I probably should leave the telephone line free. You know, being a washed-up movie actress certainly has its tribulations. Yes, I will. Goodbye, darling. Luddy? Luddy, I'm not, am I? Washed up. I adore you. You know that? Yes, of course, soon. Goodbye. Luddy was my first lover. I mean, I met him during my senior year at Bryn Mawr, and he completely fascinated me with his fine diction and his crisp lapels. Oh, he made a heavenly impression. He'd been absolutely everywhere and knew everybody. Well, one day, Luddy bought a new camera, and he wanted to take pictures of me. Click this, snap that. It was all fun. After about an hour or so, I decided to shed my regalia and be photographed all natural. So there I was, leaning back against this fabulous, high-backed, burgundy crushed velvet chaise with matching fringe and tassels, while Luddy captured my young Aphrodite appeal, frame after frame after frame, until we ran out of film. Now there I was, sprawled in all my glory, while Luddy was hovering and slobbering nearby. So, we did it. Unfortunately, due to the impulse and brevity of the situation, neither one of us thought to use any, you know. And so, secretly knowing what would soon transpire, I left New York. I left my career, and I became a proper wife to Luddy. A decision I regretted within 2 weeks' time. I just couldn't do it. I felt like, it felt like I was giving up, and I was in no way a quitter. So I made a decision, one that would take me back to the theater with no caretaking responsibilities. I suppose in my heart of hearts I knew it wouldn't last. I wasn't fit to be married. Luddy was a nice man. And no nice man deserves to be married to an actress or any woman whose mind is always on herself. Well, if I were a man, I wouldn't be dumb enough to marry someone who couldn't walk past a mirror without looking into it. If truth be told, I don't believe in marriage. I think it's bloody inconvenient to expect someone to love, honor, and obey. If it weren't, they wouldn't make you sign that damn contract, right? But actors, we're an odd lot. Of course, it's all facade. Until we are unmasked, exposed, discovered. And then we learn to be tough. We need to be abrasive. So when the barbarians show up at our gate, and they always do, we've already prepared ourselves for battle. My secret weapon of choice in those days, 4-inch high heels. That's exactly what I wore. The first day I walked onto the RKO lot, so I would tower over those vulgar studio moguls. Selznick, even then, did not want me. He told George Cukor, I tested like a boa constrictor on a fast. But George fought for me. And I landed my first feature film, A Bill of Divorcement. I'll never forget, the first day of filming, we shot a couple of scenes that morning, and then at lunchtime, Mr. Barrymore which is what he insisted on being called. Mr. Barrymore asked if I'd like to run lines with him. Well, of course I agreed. When I showed up at his trailer and opened the door, well, there he was. All 200 some odd pounds of him, beached on a cot, stark naked. I tell you, in all my years, I've never seen a more nauseating sight. Well, I quickly covered my eyes with my hands and I screamed, "Mr. Barrymore, what are you doing?" His reply, "Foreplay, darling." Well, I turned and was just about to leave, and then I felt this bear-like paw cupping my right buttock. Well, that was it. I turned back around, gave him a good hard slap across the face. I said, "I'll have you know, I am a proper young woman, and if this happens again, I will be forced to stop acting." "But my darling," he replied, "I wasn't aware you'd even started." Well, we both immediately burst out laughing, and from that day on, Don became sort of a father figure to me in a grotesque sort of way. He taught me how to turn my face just so toward the camera for the most flattering profile, and how to work with my key light. While the old bugger even taught me how to upstage other actors without them knowing it. Invaluable advice. Divorcement was a huge success. And I worked almost constantly after that, never a break. In fact, I made my first 5 films in a year and a half's time. Even picked up one of those little gold statues for Morning Glory. And I was well on my way, at the top of everyone's list. But what to do next? What to do? And then it hit me. I'll go back to Broadway. Back to my roots. The theater. Big mistake. You see, the play, The Lake, was moronic in its inception. It's a story of this impossibly stuffy society woman who is accidentally driven into a lake by her young bridegroom. He is trapped beneath the wheel and drowns. She escapes, but becomes deranged and commits suicide. It was a real pick-me-up of a plot. But if you think the storyline is bad, oh my, the dialogue was much worse. Imagine going on stage every night and saying, "Hello, Mother. Hello, Father. The calla lilies are in bloom again. Such a strange flower, suitable for any occasion. Why, I carried them on my wedding day. And now I place them here in memory of one who has died." I mean, really, who talks like that? Now you're probably wondering, why did I agree to do this play in the first place? Well, it was a favor for an old friend, a producer friend of mine who was down on his luck, or so he said. Jed Harris. His reputation in New York is notorious. Why, I actually got a telegram from Helen Hayes urging me to walk. The first day of rehearsal, Jed fires the director, filling that position himself. "Oh, for God's sake, Jed! I walk right, you tell me go left. I stand, you say sit. I gesture with one hand, you say use the other. You are killing my self-confidence. Now let me try it again." I've always been ashamed. I could never face it. You were saying something to me that day, but I wasn't looking at you. No, I didn't dare. I was instead watching the sun setting into the lake. I am not posing. I am not striking an attitude. I am not being a big movie star. Jed, I am acting. I'm trying to feel the dialogue. I'm trying to feel the character, but you are making it impossible for me. Oh, if only my heart would break. But it goes on beating. That is the horror. That is the line. Yes, I know I'm having trouble with the lines, Jed, because the lines are preposterous. But this isn't about the play. This is about you and me. It's about your greed. Because all I am to you is a damned insurance policy. My name on the marquee guarantees ticket sales. So after what was a rather excruciating rehearsal process, opening night finally arrived. And despite my constant prayers to God, I was still unfortunately alive. I checked into the Waldorf. It was either that or Bellevue. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And according to the theater critics, I certainly couldn't act. Some of the headlines: bring a lifeboat to the lake. Better to drown than see the lake. And my personal favorite: make like a pebble and skip the lake. But I knew I could count on my good friend Dorothy Parker to stand up for me. Her headline made history. Come to the Martin Beck Theater and watch Katharine Hepburn run the gamut of emotions from A to B. After closing, I crawled back to Hollywood, licking my wounds, desperate to pick up the pieces of my remaining career, but everything I did after that was a dog, a wailing hound. Jed Harris had blown my self-confidence to smithereens, and Hollywood got to feed on what was left of me. Life lesson number 1. When there is uncertainty in the water, the sharks go swimming. My friends were the first to turn their backs on me. And my enemies? Oh, they are relishing my demise. Why, I wake up every morning and ask myself, is this it? Is this the day it all comes crashing to an end? But you see, it doesn't work that way in our industry. That would be too easy. That would be too kind. There's no glory in the kill if it comes quickly and mercifully. No, it has to be done slowly, excruciatingly slowly, so that you lose every fiber of your self-worth. Katharine Hepburn, well, she can't act. She never could. The only reason she's lasted this long is because on those rare occasions when she does let a man screw her, she makes damn sure she's under someone who can give her a job. What? Oh, Leland. Oh, darling, please forgive me. I'm terribly sorry for all those foul things I said earlier, but Oh, you did? Oh, he has? Oh, I won't. Vivian who? But nobody knows her. She's not a star. She's not even American. Do you mean to tell me Selznick went with an unknown over me? Well, then what the hell have I been doing for the last 10 years? Why have I been pushing myself so hard? Just so the entire world can watch Katharine Hepburn lose the greatest role ever written to an unknown? Look, Leland, I have to hang up now. Daddy. It's me. Well, nothing much. I was just wondering if you and Mother were coming down this weekend. I thought we could go see what's at the movies or what's playing over in Ivoryton and maybe... Oh, of course, I forgot. No, Daddy. No, I didn't. Leland just called and apparently they've decided to go with someone else. But don't you worry. I'll make you proud of me again, Daddy. I promise. Yes, of course, I understand. You go. My love to Mother. Goodbye, Daddy. Go away! Go away! Go away! All right, I'm coming. Okay, thank you. Dear Katharine, seeing that your career is in the toilet, I thought I'd buy you a plunger. Love always, Howard. You damn fool. What's this? The Philadelphia story.
Baby, that's the only thing I can dream of wild, scheme of wild.
Would you believe they have the nerve to call this accessory a walking cast? Evidently someone in the medical profession has a sense of humor about these things. I, however, after having dragged the damn thing around for a month and a half, do not. As you can see, I am a party of one this afternoon. All my friends either can't make it out here anymore, or they're dead. And at my age, death is the only excuse I'll accept for anyone not wanting to spend time with me. It's for the pain. That ought to make it just right.
Some tea.
So, what the hell happened? Damned if I know. 1 minute, I'm driving along the Saybrook Causeway, and the next I'm watching some nurse take a scissors to my Prada slacks. Long story short, I hit a telephone pole. Me and Phyllis both. Bam, smack right into it. And it's a good thing it was there. Otherwise, I might have ended up like my poor bridegroom in the lake. Pinned helplessly beneath the water, you know. My funeral would have been a complete mockery. Calla lilies everywhere. Oh, poor Phyllis, she didn't make it out so well. She's still in the hospital with a broken wrist, a chipped neck vertebrae, broken right elbow, 2 cracked ribs, and a partridge in a pear tree for all that. And don't think she's not milking it. Anything to get out of work, that one. As for me, I broke my ankle. Just the ankle, mind you. Why I have this contraption up to here is a medical mystery. Hello? Oh, Robert. Yes, I'm feeling much better. Well, those pills helped tremendously. Now, for heaven's sakes, at my age, if I was going to become an addict, my drug of choice would be something more glamorous than Percocet. Oh no, I'm sleeping fine these days. Well, on those rare occasions when I can't sleep, I just put Gone with the Wind in the Betamax. Listen, Bob, I need you to have a talk with the family. Well, they brought up this damn Parkinson's crap again, and now they've convinced themselves that my little fender bender was somehow related to... Robert, that is a lot of bunk. Now, my car went off the road. It could have happened to anyone. I don't want to hear that. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I do not have tests. What tests? Oh, I see. Well, no, of course, whatever you think. Next Monday will be fine. All right then. Robert, this is nothing I need to worry about, is it? All right then. Yes, next Monday. Nora! 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 Why do you suppose? People find the words private property so damned intriguing. Nora! Oh, good Lord, not again. Yes, thank you. He's worse than a crazed fan. Every week, without fail, another arrangement arrives with the same 3-word message on the card. Please say yes. Warren Beatty is not without charm. Excuse me just a moment. Hello, Warren. Kate Hepburn. Well, I see you've been a naughty boy again. And you know what I do to naughty boys, don't you? Oh, you are incorrigible. Why, if I didn't think you'd enjoy it so damn much, I'd turn you over my knee. Seriously, though, dear, these gifts have got to stop. As I've said, your offer is most flattering, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to work again, but I am retired now. Yes, I realize women have a hard time saying no to you. I also realize I'm the only woman in Hollywood who ever has. But really, you don't understand. My health is not what it... I couldn't possibly. No, I can't. No, 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 no. If things look a bit different around here when it's for good cause. That tropical storm of 1938 did indeed turn out to be a hurricane. And she was one bitch of a disaster. Washed our house completely away. Mrs. McCafferty, who lives on the other side of the river, saw the whole thing. She called Father in Hartford to tell him our house was floating down the Connecticut River. Father didn't believe her. Partly because Mrs. McCafferty was blind as a fruit bat, and partly because she was known to enjoy sleeping in the company of Captain Morgan. But after the storm passed, we all gathered in front of what used to be our home. There was nothing there. No walls, no furniture, nothing. Our house was gone. We stood this way for some time, and then my brother, Dickie, who I still wasn't on speaking terms with after having cut off his allowance, Dickie got down on his hands and knees and began to dig. We didn't know what the hell he was doing. And this went on for a rather embarrassing length of time. But then, much to our surprise, Dickie pulled from the sand Mother's silver creamer. If you could have seen the look on Mother's face when she realized what had been recovered, it was pure elation. Well, now we were on a mission, you see. We all rolled up our sleeves and cuffed our pants and got right to work. For 72 hours. By the end of the third day, we had recovered Mother's entire tea service, including all 85 pieces of her sterling silver flatware. Life lesson number 743. Hope will undoubtedly uncover life's buried treasures. That one has a double meaning, you see. I'll just freshen up my drink while the slower members of the audience figure that one out. Well, Dickie and I eventually called a truce. He agreed to shelve that god-awful play of his, and I don't know, I probably bought him something or other. And with a little determination and a lot of patience, we rebuilt Fenwick to nearly the same dimensions as before. Nora! The cookies? She always forgets the cookies. Nora! I think she just does this to piss me off. Nora! Oh, completely unacceptable. Hartford Hospital. Yes, Katharine Hepburn calling. Give me my assistant's room. No, I don't know the number. Look it up. Hello, Phyllis. Oh, sweetheart. How are you feeling today? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Listen, Phil. What the hell were you thinking when you hired that four-leaf loafer? Well, those Irish eyes of hers have been bloodshot for weeks. Fire her now! Ever since Fanny died, housekeeping services at Fenwick have sunk to incredible new lows. Of course, I'm around more now to witness that unending carelessness. Attention to detail. You see, that is the key to success in life. Case in point, I have a dear friend who shall remain nameless, Elizabeth Conley. I had Elizabeth over for supper one evening. She offered to clear the table. I accepted. Unbeknownst to me, she chipped one of my most expensive china plates. But rather than tell me about it, she tried to hide it under a stack of dishes. Fortunately, I am not one to hold a grudge. I still have Elizabeth over for supper at least once a month. I do, and you know, every time I make damn sure she eats off that same detail, you see. Why, when I was filming The Corn is Green in Wales, George Cukor and I demanded detail. I always enjoy working with the same group of people because it's terribly embarrassing to have to explain your eccentricities to complete strangers. Anyway, George and I agreed the film had to be shot in Wales, not California. The mist in the morning, the smell of the air, the softness of the hills and the colors of the water, detail. Now, as you may or may not remember, at the beginning of that picture, Miss Lily is riding her bicycle up a hill. Well, George hired a stunt double because he felt it would be too strenuous for me. Absolutely not, I told him. I am Miss Lily. And if Miss Lily rides her bicycle up those hills, by God, that's what I'm going to do. So there I was, in complete 1890s attire, riding an authentic 1890s bicycle up a very steep 1890s hill. The cameras would roll, I'd start pedaling and fall off. Cameras would roll, I'd start pedaling and fall off. Again, and again, and again. And that's when I heard it. A whisper from one of the crew. A young man's voice saying, God, she got old. Well, I put down the bicycle, marched my way through that crowd of young people, and went right up to that punk's face, and I said, you're right. I have. And then I gave a nod to the stunt woman. I went back to my hotel, got undressed, took a lukewarm bath, and cried myself to sleep. And that is why I dumped my career before it had a chance to dump me. You see, Hollywood is not kind to older women. The script writers don't want to write for you. The producers don't want to pay you. Because audiences don't want to watch you. And so, now that I am not as well as I once was, well, I suppose that's life, isn't it? You plow ahead and you get somewhere in life, and then you plow on and someone passes you, and then someone passes him or her. Time levels. Gone. So many gone. Father, mother, Luddy, Howard, Tom. Tom was the first to go. And yet I miss him more than all of them combined. When I was 14 years old, my brother Tom and I went to stay with our Aunt Mary in Greenwich Village. She used to take us every place imaginable. Well, on the night before we were to leave, we saw a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Tom loved going to the cinema. But that night he just sat there next to me, motionless. When the film was over, I asked him what was the matter. Well, he admitted the hanging scene in the film gave him the horrors, as he put it. When we got back to Auntie's townhouse, she put a pan of milk on the stove to make hot cocoa, but Tom was not interested. He was tired and merely wanted to go to bed. He kissed Aunt Mary goodnight, and I followed him out into the front vestibule. "Are you sure? There's nothing troubling you?" I asked. "Please tell me what is wrong." But he never did. He never could. He just smiled at me and said, "You're my girl, aren't you, Katie? You're my favorite girl in the world." The next morning, I went upstairs to Tom's room in Auntie's attic. I would always tiptoe because Tom and I love scaring the dickens out of each other. But this time, my brother Tom was 15 years old, a straight-A student, a wonderful athlete, and a caring friend, and was dangling from a sheet he had tied and twisted around his neck. When I went to cut him down from the beam with pinking shears, I noticed his feet were still dragging the floor. All he had to do at any time was merely stand up. Aunt Mary immediately called my parents in Hartford, and when they arrived in Manhattan, seeing them for the first time, I don't know, I suppose I expected some different kind of emotion, some heightened sense of something. But everything they did that day was uncomfortably normal. They were strangely not strange. Within a few hours, funeral arrangements had been secured, and before I knew it, we were on a ferry headed home. I stood between Mother and Father, the three of us clutching the icy railing at the back of the boat. Our hands were nearly frozen, but we never released our grip. Reality provides a numbness, I suppose. Not pleasant, not painful, not anything. As the ferry approached the dock, I found the courage to look up at Mother, but it was not her face. I had seen that look before, but never on Mother. Silent tears running down the sides of her face. No noise, no weeping. Graceful and dignified, like the Mother of Christ. For a child to see a parent in that state of unbearable sorrow, there is no greater pain. I immediately burst out sobbing, weeping so suddenly and loudly that my father placed his hand over my mouth to stifle my cries. And as the palm of his hand pressed forcefully against my face, I saw him look at Mother with such disdain, disapproval. All it took was that one look, and Mother regained full composure. From that day forward, Tom's name was never mentioned again. For you see, it was not allowed. He should have cried. His son was dead. He should have cried. I felt isolated and completely despondent. My childhood had been torn from me, and I was forced into an adult world that was terrifying. I was immediately pulled out of school to be tutored at home, so Mother and Father could keep an eye on me, and so our secret would be kept safe. The next 2 months in Hartford were unbearably still. Mother stopped inviting visitors for tea at 5, and Father poured himself into his work, desperately determined to become Chief of Staff at Hartford Hospital. That never happened. How could it? The whole town was whispering behind our backs. You see, they had been talking about the Hepburn curse for years. Tom was not the first in our family to commit suicide. There were others. Grandfather Holton, Uncle Charlie, who fired not 1 but 2 shots into his temple. Uncle Sewell, and only a week after Tom's death, Father's brother hurled himself from the 3rd floor of his Gramercy Park townhouse and was impaled on a spiked fence below. The Hepburn curse, you see. I was the oldest now, and it was up to me to look after a family that was almost on the verge of collapse. But what could I do? What could I do? I went upstairs to my room, taking with me a pair of scissors, and I cut strand after strand of my red hair until it was only about 1 inch long all over, just like Tom's. But the color was all wrong, so I took 3 lemons and I squeezed the juice onto my scalp, and I sat in the sun all day long in order to have blonde hair, like Tom. After it got dark, I put on a pair of my brother's old shorts and sweatshirts, and I went upstairs to Father's room. Opened the door and let myself in, and after a moment he turned and saw me. "Good God, Kate," he said. "What have you done to yourself? Why, you look just like Tom," I said. "Just like Tom. Don't you worry, Father. I'm going to make you proud of me. I promise. I'm going to make you proud of me, Father." Oh, God. Oh, God. Now. Now. I did a musical once. A big, splashy Broadway musical. And I was wonderful in it, even though I couldn't sing or dance. The play was called Coco, and I played the title role of the legendary fashion designer Coco Chanel. The production, however, was not quite what we anticipated. My 13-year-old nephew put it into words which most folks who saw the play probably felt but never expressed. It sucked. Truth be told, I've never been a fan of musical theater. I think it's a perfectly ridiculous art form. I mean, the only people I know who burst into song every 10 minutes have been committed. I suppose my aversion could have something to do with living next door to this young composer for several years. You see, I keep a townhouse in Manhattan, the Turtle Bay area, and this young musician, this Stephen Sondheim fellow, would start his work day at 10 o'clock p.m., a time when I had already been asleep for 3 hours. And he didn't just play the piano. No, he abused it. You see, he was banging out this new musical about neurotic New Yorkers. Talk about writing what one knows. There was this one song appropriately entitled, "You Could Drive a Person Crazy," which I had to listen to constantly. This went on for weeks and weeks. Until finally, early one morning in February, Mr. Sondheim broke into "You Could Drive a Person Crazy," and finally succeeded in doing just that to me. I leaped out of bed. I marched myself on bare feet across a snowy courtyard so I could press my face right up against Mr. Sondheim's living room window. Sensing somehow that he and his jumbo-sized cocktail were no longer alone, he turned and saw me glaring at him in the window. I looked at him, he looked at me. We stared each other down this way for some 15 minutes and never a word was spoken. Until finally I realized it was bloody freezing out there. And so I gave him one last snarl to punctuate my displeasure, and I went back home. My unexpected visit paid off for both of us, you see. I was awarded silence, and Mr. Sondheim was awarded the Tony for company. I tell that story a lot. Mr. Sondheim tells it just a bit differently. He makes me sound much nicer in his version. And you know, nothing pisses me off more than when someone tries to spoil my perfectly wicked reputation. But you don't want to hear me rambling on about Stephen Sondheim. You would much rather I talk about Spence. A subject which, mind you, I have never discussed before, especially to the press. But after reading countless articles about myself which simply are not true, I decided it was high time to set the record straight. I discovered myself when I met Spencer Tracy. I wasn't looking for a husband, and he already had a wife. In other words, he always had me, but I did not always have him. Not the most conventional of relationships. Now, over the years, I've had so many people ask me, what was it about Spence that made you stay with him for almost 27 years? Damned if I know. He had a kind heart, a wrinkled brow, that damn downturned smile of his. And as for Spence, I have no idea how he felt about me. I can only say if he hadn't liked me, he would not have hung around. We met for the first time outside the main entrance to MGM. Spence now was not a short man by any means, but when wearing those 4-inch high heels, which tragically I was that day, my appearance can be somewhat intimidating. I said, I hope my height doesn't bother you when we start filming. He said, well, if it does, I'll just have to cut you down to size. And boy, did he ever. You see, even though I was the star, Spencer Tracy was the actor. I never grew tired of watching that man work. Never. His talent was my weakness. And now this may come as a surprise to you, but Spence was not particularly fond of me in the beginning. He told the producer he didn't see how there could ever be a spark between us, seeing as how I dressed like a man and had dirty fingernails. But I've always loved a good challenge. And so I became dead set on proving Spence wrong. You see, I had fallen in love, and thankfully so had he. It's rather nice when it works out that way. to have these get-togethers at the house every now and then. Oh, how we would sit with friends at the table, and for hours we would eat, drink, and talk shop. Spence would be in rare form. Articulate, witty, sharp. And when Spencer Tracy told a story, it was completely captivating and often hilarious. But one summer evening, we had friends over for dinner, and for some reason, Spence began to tell this rather unflattering story about how my father pointed a shotgun at a fisherman whose boat had crashed upon our property. He began going on and on about how hypocritical we Hepburns were, as his speech began to slur. Please, Spence, I said, can't we talk about something else? You could feel the air being sucked out of the room as he glared at me from across the table. Don't you ever interrupt me again, do you understand? Well, yes, Spence, I do. I was only trying to... Don't interrupt me! And take that feather out of your ass when you speak to me. It was not all fun and games. There were problems. Problems of a deep-rooted kind. I always figured it was the guilt, you see. Not about me. But the boy, Johnny. You see, when his son was born, when his son was conceived, Spence unknowingly had a venereal disease. And in those days, the boy was born deaf, incurable. When Spence found this out, he disappeared for days on a major bender. Whatever it was, the boy, his infidelity, the church, or whatever, his torment was his alone to bear. He never talked about it. Not to me, not to anyone. And I never brought it up or pressed the matter. The alcoholism was not our problem. It was his problem. And all that mattered was that I always be there for him. If that meant sleeping on the floor by his bed or camping outside Hotel St. George when he was on a bender, no matter how many hours or days, I would always wait for him. Because you see, there is nothing more attractive to a woman than a man who so desperately needs her. And so despite the drinking and the womanizing and the abuse, I could never leave Spence. Because that was where I belonged. And because if I did, I'd be alone just like I am now. When Spence died, someone had to call the wife. The news had to come from me. She arrived within minutes, already wearing black. I said, Louise, we needn't be uncomfortable around each other anymore. You see, we could be friends now. You knew him in the beginning, and I knew him in the end. A response? Well, yes, but I always thought you were just a rumor. A rumor. 27 years I spent with that man, and that is my calling card. Katharine Hepburn, rumor. I didn't go to the funeral. It would have been far too conspicuous. But on the morning of the services, I went down to Cunningham and Walsh to see the old boy off. The men and I lifted the casket into the wagon, and they closed the door and drove away. I followed them for a short distance until they approached the church, and then they went forward and I turned left. Goodbye, old boy. I have to leave you now. This sweater is all I have left of Spence. And even this, he didn't leave me. You see, the one thing I truly wanted from Spence, he can never give me. And so I remain, to this day, a rumor. I gave up my career to love that man. And when he was gone, my career was all I had left to love. And oh, how I threw myself in the mix. Anything to keep my mind off Spence. You see, my work has always been my salvation. Always. And perhaps, regrettably, my priority. You know, I never believed in having it all. You either have a career or you have a family. You get married or you keep your freedom. You fall in love or you protect yourself. We all choose the life we live. At some point, aware or not, we choose. Why, when Mother told Father she was going to run for the Connecticut Senate, he said to her very matter-of-factly, "Well, that's fine, dear. Now, when do we sign the divorce papers?" Now, here was a woman whose drive and intellect and potential far exceeded Father's. But she chose. She gave up what would have been a completely different and possibly more fulfilling life. She chose. And how did Father repay her for this sacrifice? By burning all Mother's papers and correspondence when she died, destroying any evidence she even existed. You see, we choose. Personally, I don't regret not having children. Why, whenever my maternal instincts flare up, I simply visit my nieces and nephews and am instantly reminded why I abandoned Mother. I don't know. I suppose somewhere inside this old broad, there's still that young girl who used to go to the movies with her brother and watch the same film twice, hoping that the final reel might somehow be altered. You may not believe this, coming from me, but all I ever wanted to see was a happy ending. And so what was it all for? Money, power, recognition, love? I don't know. I only know that if I could have an alternate reel, you want to know what I'd change about my life? Not one damn thing. Hello, Warren. Kate Hepburn here. The answer is yes. Experience and a labor of love for me, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it.